What's in it for me? How can I make money? Welcome back to Listen to Leo. In today's video, I wanted to dig further into the idea supply chain and specifically where value accrues in the chain. Because if you understand where the value accrues, you can position yourself well to be successful at any point along the chain. And this is why it's so important to understand what's happening. So to begin, let's start with sourcing ideas, right? There are ideas all around us at any given time. Just think about Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter. Just scroll Twitter for 5 minutes. How many ideas are in there? How many tweets did you look at? Sheets? Shits? I don't know what you say now. But everybody's got an idea there that they just threw into the world, and it's there. A lot of ideas. Which ones are important? That's hard to tell. And so this is the first place that you can act in a valuable way. Filtering. This is content curation. It's where you take all of the ideas out there and pick the best ones. If you're really good at this, you can turn this into all sorts of things down the line. Think about the people with AI newsletters who pull out the new and interesting things that are happening in AI, put that out on a newsletter, build an entire product around that. Boom. Think about anybody who does that for anything, right? You can have someone who's curating the top podcast. You can have someone who's curating the top snorkels. Just listened to a podcast the other day with the snorkel influencer. Who talks about diving and has sponsorships from these various companies producing dive equipment. Literally, you can curate information and ideas about anything. And so, to do this, you have to understand what's valuable. You have to have taste. Jay Acunzo has a great piece on what it means to have taste. Highly recommend you check it out. But the idea here is that you just pick out the important bits. You do the filtering so that other people don't have to. This saves them time and energy and is therefore valuable. Okay, let's move up the chain. So we've picked out the best pieces and now it's all about assembly. This is the manufacturing piece. You take a whole bunch of ideas and information and data, package them together, and you build a product. What is a product? Typically, a product is something that you can hand off. Hopefully, it doesn't require too much service. It's something that people feel is valuable. They are willing to exchange money for it. Now, a lot of times we think of products, you might think of like information products, Notion templates, courses, books, anything, right? And honestly, I don't think you actually have to worry about necessarily building products. You can also build products that are free content, right? And, you know, I'm creating these YouTube videos for a reason, to hopefully help people, but also pull people into my ecosystem, develop a level of trust. And so I want to share what I'm thinking about, mostly because nobody around me really cares what I'm talking about, so I'm talking to the strangers on the internet. But hey, we all have our issues, right? But I think this is a really valuable concept, that you can build anything into a product, and it's just a matter of figuring out what people enjoy, or what people want, or what people need, putting it together, taking all of these ideas, packaging them up. Maybe you take some ideas and build out a framework. Maybe you take some ideas and build out a SaaS platform that can, you know, do all of these things for you. Doesn't matter. This is where you're building the product. And there's a lot of upside here. You can make a ton of money by building products, especially online, because it scales so well. I can build one piece of software that tens or hundreds or thousands of people can use simultaneously, and I'm still just me. That being said, it's really easy to scale, it's attractive, it's competitive, it's hard to be discovered. So it's more than just building a product that people use. It is about the rest of the supply chain. How do we distribute it? How do we package it? All of that, I think, is something that people tend to not consider. So they build it, and then people don't come. And so that's something to think about. But if you do it right, the building piece can be extremely lucrative. Just have to understand the rest of it too. All right, let's move into the packaging. All right, so you've got a product. Now it's about packaging it. Maybe it's wrapping that framework in a story. Maybe it's about taking that SaaS platform and wrapping it in a marketing concept that people understand and resonate with. This is a whole area. Now, a lot of the people I think in this section are going to see themselves as consultants. Basically, I see what you've got and I know how to package that up for this audience. Now, you've got to understand the audience, you've got to understand the product, you've got to understand the problem that the product solves for the audience. So you have to understand a lot of things here. But if you do see that opportunity and say, hey, why don't you package this up this way for this audience? That's a valuable service. All of a sudden, if you're helping them get sales to this type of audience, you know, that's incredibly powerful. And actually, this is what a lot of creators do too. When you're talking about building brand sponsorships and things like that, you're like, okay, I understand that I'm talking to this audience. These are the types of people in it. They have these problems. Hey, this product's a great fit. You go to the brand and say, hey, I've got these types of people in my audience. Let's talk, because I've already captured their attention. I've already, built trust with that audience. And we're going to see a lot more of this going forward because people trust people. People don't trust brands as much. And so if you're going through creators who are actually talking to their audience, who know their audience, there's a lot of value that can be exchanged in this packaging layer. And I think, for most creators who have established audiences, this is probably where they're going to position themselves, or they're going to be a consultant that says, hey, I can come in and help you do this. Either way, it kind of depends on the size of the audience and like whether you're dealing more with like the audience side of things or the brand side of things. There's a little flexibility in there. Okay, now let's talk distribution. So distributing ideas. You might see this as media. That's part of it. So once you have an idea that is packaged up in some way, it's about getting it out to the world. And maybe it's via the creator, and they have an established audience, and they understand how the YouTube algorithm works. They understand how to, package their ideas on YouTube for maximum distribution. They understand what their audience wants to watch. This part of the puzzle is a little more complicated because there are a ton of different players. But the way I like to view it is it depends on a couple different things. It depends on who's in the audience and what their objectives are. And it really depends on the type of distribution channel you're talking, right? Because there are multiple types of distribution channels, and we can think of this like, okay, so we have this idea, it's in a package, and we give it to a courier who hand delivers it to some person and verifies delivery. Okay, that's one type of distribution. Another type of distribution is you print off a bunch of flyers and, address them, give them to the post office distributes them to a wider area. This is not going to be as effective, but it's going to be much wider in scope. And if you assume that there's, some relatively decent conversion rate, that's fine too. Then there are like radio and TV ads, right? So here you're broadcasting within somebody else's captured attention in exchange for money. And you broadcast your message to people who are watching it at that time. And so, kind of depending on where the ads come in here, and kind of radio and television tie into YouTube as well. I'm just old. So depending on who your audience is and what they find valuable, these ideas may come across differently to them. Now, what I kind of focused on there was the idea of like advertising, or like, hey, I've got this thing and I want to sell it to you. But I think instead of just like the advertising thing, I think that the sales piece comes in too. And so one of the things that I focus on is like what's coming in the future, because I want to be communicating some of these ideas first. And so it's not about reaching the widest audience first. It's about reaching the people who care about what's going to happen in the future, likely because they are people building or people investing in what's coming next. So because of this, I'm not worried about necessarily getting the biggest audience possible. For me, it's about finding the right audience, the people who are actually building and influencing the future. Because as I share these ideas, it's not just what I think will happen and what I want to happen. I'm trying to influence it by suggesting it as a possibility and putting it into the heads of people who are making that future happen. And so all of a sudden, the calculus shifts and it becomes not a numbers game, but an accuracy game. And I have to understand what that audience is and where they're looking. And so I want to jump on things like trends early, so that as people are searching for trends and trending ideas, they'll eventually stumble upon my content, see, oh, actually he was on this way earlier than everybody else, and use that as a signal that, hey, this guy knows what's going on. And thus that becomes incredibly valuable to them, right? And so it's about understanding what your audience finds valuable. And it's not always about what's happening right now in a video or a piece of content. It can be putting it out into the world to be discovered at a later time by the people who need to hear it then. And so if you can get out ahead of what your people are going to be looking for, it's going to be there when they're looking. And that is a really advanced play on making money in the distribution channels. But if you do it right, it's going to be much easier in the future, because first mover advantage, you get there earlier. When you get there earlier, you build credibility over more time. And that's something that I think most people don't appreciate. So to recap, you can curate, filter out all the crap. You can build, take everything, put it all together into something concrete, some sort of product. You can figure out how to package all of that up. Hey, put this packaging on it, looks great, can sell it here. Or you can figure out where in the distribution channels it makes the most sense to insert products or ideas and get them out to the people who need to hear them. And those are the best ways to make money, understanding the idea supply chain. So get out there, get paid. Let me know in the comments how it went for you. Any cool ideas after watching this, let me know. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.